Hey, welcome. Good to see you. There's this new plugin in 5.6 called Locomotor. Um, it's basically putting procedural animation for walking on top of your characters. And I think that's really fascinating. I love the idea of bringing procedural aspects into character animation and seeing what the engine can do for you and seeing what the animator can do, and then merging those two things together to create a unique experience. Something that usually like the animator alone would have a hard time doing, and the procedural part would alone would have a hard time doing. But then you mix them together, and it comes up with something just great. Um, there, I'm also really fascinated by it because one of the last game projects I worked on at my last company, I was creating from scratch a procedural first-person animation system to run all uh, the dragging and mouse look sway around, um, create an idle animation, and so as you move, like the weapon kind of lags behind and tilts in the location that you're moving, whether you're moving forward, backward, or side to side, or jumping up and down and landing, um, would make states for sliding and dashing and stuff like that. For crouching, um, would put procedural like oomphs and jumps on mantling that we had in the game. It was actually a lot of fun to do. And the reason why I think it was a lot of fun is because once you created the system, any gun could slot into that system, and then it gets all of that quote unquote for free, or I should just say instantaneously. And then you could modify all that as you wanted um, for that individual gun. I also did a tutorial by Lincoln Markinson. I think I'm pronouncing that name right, but probably not. Let's see here. Yeah, Lincoln Markinson on Udemy with this Scorpion that I'm showing right now. And wanted to show off this because if we take all the animation out of here, then play the character and move them around, we can see that like everything that's happening here is procedural. Like there's no keyframe animation here. And part of what I did, so I extended this tutorial beyond the actual lessons, and I created uh, some slope warping on the capsule and made the character also go into fly mode so they can crawl off anything. And then I clamped the character's position to be a certain height off the ground, so there's a ground trace to the ground, and it finds that position, and it says don't move further than that. That way, in fly mode, we don't go off into the air and start moving around in off the ground. And if we start moving faster, we have like a different cadence for the footsteps, and the tail does something slightly different. So there's um, there's a slight blend into those state changes too, because we're not accelerating just instantaneously. We have um, some amount of acceleration that allows us to move slowly from one speed to another. Then when we stop, we can see that we slow down too. And you can see my traces, how they're uh, the yellow trace and the pink trace. I think that's specifically for the different, I think it's the thorax and the abdomen on the body. But there's a trace that I'm not drawing here that is projecting out to see where the character is going based off movement input. And that way, the capsule can start um, rotating to the ground based off the direction that the character or the player wants to move. So it's almost like we're looking forward in the future based off the direction that we're getting to say, how should I rotate my capsule in relation to the ground? And I put some indicators there to show us kind of what the capsule is doing. It's not perfect. It's definitely not game ready. Uh, there's no jumping. But it was a really great test, and I really liked doing that tutorial. So I'm really fascinated by what procedural animation can do, because without procedural animation, as it's described in the Locomotor tutorial page, procedural animation is any motion. Let's bring that over. Any motion that is generated by a procedure rather than playing back pre-recorded keyframe animation. So basically, we're making a system to make the character do what we want it to do. And we just fell there. But yeah, like all this stuff is super fascinating to me. Like I said, it's not perfect, so you got some bugs. I'm not trying to make this game ready. There's another test where you take that control rig that you make and put it on this character here. So if we open up a new map, that's the wrong engine, still the wrong one. I will find it. It is this one. I want to come here, I think. Bring this down, bring this back up. As soon as I find it, I'll, oh, I've moved my stuff around and it's being a jerk. Let's move this one. Here it is. Bring that. There we are. Let's go to a new level. Our four-legged monster. And we'll play this one too. So you start off the tutorial with the scorpion, and then you move everything that you did and put it on this character. So I went in and modified this character to be a little bit different than how the scorpion operates. You can see like the two different speed modes there. And how the feet move at different speeds based off the speed of the character. Move at different cadences based off the speed of the character. So yeah, I find all this stuff to be, like I said, really fascinating. And I love how we can mix and match this with keyframe animation. So what I wanted to do today is get started on going through the locomotor tutorial. I've done it once, and I wanted to do it again. One thing I wanted to show here first is the Scorpion BP, because I'm not doing everything with control rig. I'm not a control rig master. um, I've actually used transform bone nodes much more than control rig, getting information, plugging that in, and saying do something to these nodes. So if we go here to the Scorpion, we disconnect our set actor, um, set location and rotation on our actor, open up our old level, we can see that we aren't, our capsule isn't rotating to the ground and doing that slope warping, that nice slope warping stuff. We also aren't moving up either, so that's part of it. So I just wanted to take you through that setup real quick. That's actually a fairly straightforward setup. If you've ever done traces before, like you'll understand this. Basically, I'll take you through it. It won't be exact. Feel free to take a screenshot or pause the setup. So we just want to focus on this output, this from our sequence. We're not going to focus on the bottom one. The bottom one's doing the same thing, but I'm projecting it forward and backwards from the Z location. I'm sorry, from the, what is it? I guess it's the Y location on the character's capsule, forward 50 units in front and 50 units behind to kind of simulate that thorax and abdomen location for those trace locations instead of getting the exact mesh socket location. I found that a little uh, nicer in the result than getting the mesh socket. So we're just getting the actor location. We're getting our movement vector, and we're selecting which input we want to use. If we are moving, so we're getting our velocity, our vector length. We're saying if we have a basically a speed value that's greater than 0, then we'll pick A, and then we'll use our last movement vector. But if not, we'll just use 0, 0, 0. Either way, we're projecting out 150 units in front of us, or whatever direction we're going if we're using the movement vector. And that's our start location. Nope, I'm sorry, that's our end location. Our start location is our current actor location, and our end location is based off speed and the direction that we're moving. If we have no speed and no direction, it'll just be 0, 0, 0. And then we're projecting that forward. And then we're doing another trace. So we save that out as our floor trace hit location because we're going to use that later. Then we're doing another trace just on the up vector, and we're shooting it down 500 units. So that is our end location for our next trace. And then we're saving that out as our second hit location. And this is where it gets pretty messy, but basically I'm doing two things here. I'm setting the actor location, and then I'm setting the actor's rotation, so the capsule rotation and location. So first, we're getting the actor's location, and we want the XY. So we're saving that out and doing the exact same thing. But we want the character's Z location to be locked to 150 units off of the ground. So we're getting, I'm just using an F interp so that as you move up and down onto different terrain like this, then we kind of slowly move you to the new position, and not just pop you to the new position. So there is kind of that gradual change in height for the player for the character. And then we're getting the slope pitch. We get the slope pitch from our first trace. So our first trace is shooting out in front of the character. And that's what I was talking about earlier, where at that point we want to say, where are you going? And that's the slope I want to pitch towards. And then we're getting our second hit location, and then we're using that to find our roll. And I had to do negate that roll to be the opposite because it was, excuse me, it was giving us just the opposite rotation there. So if I set that back to 1, then if we play, we'll see our character rotating in the opposite direction that we want based off the slope. So we just negate that value. So there's this nice node, degree by angles. You're just putting in the actor's right location and the actor's up location. I'm sorry, vectors. So those are simple enough. Get the actor right vector. You don't have to do it this way. You can also just say get actor up vector like that and use that. And then we just want the floor normal. So we're shooting that trace down and we're getting that floor. And then that information gets spit out to these two different things. So for our scorpion, we look like this. On the side, pitch is this way. So that's going to tilt the character. That's going to rotate the character like this or like that. or like that. And then the roll. The roll is this way. So we'll rotate the character like this or like this, depending on what angles that we're on. So that is all that we're doing there. Go back to the event graph. And I'm using some f-interps so that it's a little easier. I'm setting our interp speed to 2. You can set that faster if you want. Anyway, we're setting our roll, our pitch location. And we're getting our actor location, our actor rotation from our yaw on Z. We aren't doing anything there that's changing that. Excuse me. So our pitch from here goes down here and comes into our Y for pitch. And then our roll from our second location. Because, like I said, I'm using 2 different traces. Our first trace projects out where we're going, and our second trace projects down, just down from where we are to get that roll. And then we set that as our roll. So we get our roll there. We do our little negate. We f-interpret, and then that's our roll position. So that's how I'm rotating the capsule around for slope warping. You can use this little trick anywhere, anytime you want to find the slope, and you can have like a blend space for your character to read those values. And then on the animation side, you can have your character rotate and respond to the slope that they're on. So yeah, I'm very interested in Locomotor and seeing what it can do. So let's get started on that. Like I said, I've run through the Locomotor tutorial before, so I'm just going to do it again. So first thing that we're going to do is set or create a new control rig. So we're going to get our character all set up. So create, there's faster ways to do this. We'll call this CRHG Locomotor Plugin. I've done it already. Like I said, there's faster ways to create here. Your control rig here. We're going to go to the rig hierarchy, import our SKM, and voila, we've got that set up. We're going to just leave that for now. We're going to come to our location, our different, where we're keeping our ABPs. We're going to create another animation blueprint, or find our skeleton, create that. We're just going to say ABP 0 locomotor again. And there we are. And we're going to come into our ABP. We're going to drag off of here and hit control rig. And whoops, control rig class right here. We're going to type it in and find our new locomotor. And we're going to compile and save. Our locomotor, we're going to compile and save. The next thing that we want to do, we're going to open up a map. Reset levels. Next thing that we want to do is open up our BP. So we're going to hit hero color BP. We're going to change out the ABP that we're using, our mesh. Here. We're going to go to the one that says again. We're going to compile that and save it. And like for me, I want to make sure that whenever I create like a system like this, like in the other tutorial from Lincoln with the Scorpion, that our character can be playable. So any sort of control rig stuff, I want it to be directly controlled by the player. So the next thing that we want to do is make sure that we're getting this player set up with our AVP on the animation blueprint side. So initialize blueprints. I'm going to drag this off over here. I'm going to cast to base player. And then we're just going to promote that to a variable. And then from here, we're going to get that, set it to a validated get, just so that it's all hunky-dory. And we're going to just set that like that. Compile, save. We're going to come back to the anim graph. And we haven't set our variables that we want to expose here yet, but we know that we're going to want property access here. What we're going to do is get our use our max block speed, and I'm going to open up this other one. Drag this off again, and drag this one over here. So we then want to create max walk speed. I think I want ground speed here. So that'll be our current ground speed. So if you want to find that by yourself, pretty straightforward. AVP, we're going to get the character velocity. So we just say get velocity. We're going to get the vector length xy, and that is the same as this. I just didn't save it as a variable. The next thing that we're going to want is the root location for the mesh. We want that because, well, I'll show it later, but if we aren't clamping the control rig to the character's root location, then it'll try to get to 000 in the map, which is pretty funny. So we're going to get this property access node again. We're going to come here and go for mesh. I think that's it. Yeah, hero mesh. Yeah. Let's start over. The access. We want the mesh. There it is. As soon as I can get my mouse to do what I want, we come down here. Oop. Mesh. There. That's what we want. I want to get pocket transform, and then we'll want the root of the character. So whatever your character's highest bone chain is, that's what we're gonna want. All right, so we'll save that there. So compile, save. Now we'll come over to our locomotor, and we're going to drag out and get our locomotor. And then we're going to, so this is the node that we're going to work with. We'll also need the full body a node. Create some space here. And for this setup, we'll need something else too. So, motor, just so I can reference that. It gets thinking. Oh, that's the ADP. I need the control rig. There we are. Okay, next thing that we need is to create a control. So we'll right click on our root. We'll create a new control. Doesn't matter what that control is, what it looks like. But this is the control that we want to drive here. File, save. And then we'll add in a foot set here. Open that up. And we'll do 2 feet. So first foot is, we want a bone here. We want foot left. Then another bone and foot right. Compile, save. And then we want to set the pelvis. So grab the pelvis, compile, and save. So you'll see all this stuff around, and you'll see the white circles. That is what our feet are going to be doing. So let's set the feet up real quick. So here on the full body IT, the root is the pelvis. There. Then we want to add our bones. We want bone name, which would be foot left. Oh, I'm sorry. This is going to be calf left and calf right. But we want our effectors to be our foot. So the thing that we're going to be moving around. Foot right. And we want to just drag out this array, hit at, and then we want our foot index array numbers, so 0 and 1. We duplicate that, change that to 1. So 0 comes to foot left, and then if we move our character around, we've got Locomotor moving and working already. So there's something in some other part of this about setting the preferred angle. What am I setting that to over here? Just trying to find the settings I used. We're at 35 here. Gotta admit, I'm not entirely sure what that does, but I was just going through a tutorial and showing you the setup I was using. And I didn't spend a lot of time learning why we're doing these things. But I'll link the tutorial in the video so that you can follow along too. Okay, so that's great. We've got our character moving around. We can play with these other settings. But what I want to do is create some new variables. So in our movement section here, we'll have speed max. I want that controlled by our character blueprint. And then another one is our step height. And then we'll promote that to a variable too. And then the last thing that we want, make sure that we're doing that transform, that node there. We will do our control, our root control. set that up. And let me see if we set a variable here. We want that variable to be a transform. Drag that in here and plug it in. Well, on all three of these variables, we want to set as instance editable. We'll call this variable our location. We'll call this variable our step height. Call this variable our speed max. Compile and save that. Okie dokie. So we'll mess with those settings in a second. We'll come back to our AVP here. We'll close those variables. So we won't have an animation yet, so let's bring in one of our animations. So play face idle. There we are. Now we're playing an idle animation. So that's great. Next thing we want is the root. Set that up. So this can be driven by where our actual capsule is and where it's moving our root to. And our speed, we want to set a couple of things. So we want ground speed. Oh, I started doing two more things here. I want to base the speed settings off of what we are actually doing with our character. So here I do want max walk speed. And on this one, I do want the speed multiplier that I use. Sprint speed multiplier. So we're just going to take our max walk speed. So this is a specific setup for me and multiply it by our sprint speed multiplier. And then that's going to get us the speed that we're moving at any given moment. So if we come here and, oh, no, that's okay. We're going to map this as a clamped range. Whatever speed that we're actually moving. I want to find those values here. So this one is going to be our sprint speed, and this one's going to be our walk speed. And I just want to map those to the same range. So nothing crazy there. That's going to be our max walk speed. And then what I want to do is get that again. We're going to base that off our speed. And then this one's for our step height. So depending on how fast you're moving, oh, I want to do one more. Let's go back here. Just real quick, I wanted our bob height. So that'd be our bob offset, the promote variable there. Back here, change this to, this is more like, just name that compile and save. Make sure to make it instance editable. So over here, come back and grab that new variable. So basically, I'm just saying, based off the speed that we're moving, we want to change the step height to either be lower or higher. Based off the speed that we're moving, we want to change the hip height lower or higher. So here, we're going to go 95. That's my sprint speed. And we want values of what I thought were okay for now, with 50 and 10 for our step height. So if you're moving really slow, it'll be a value of 10. If you're moving really fast, it'll be a value of 50. So you can also say, I can also clamp that to our actual walk speed there if I wanted here. so that no matter what, if we're walking, I'm sorry, if we're running, we'll have a step height of 10, and then if we're sprinting, we'll have a step height of 50. So we'll really see those differences there. And then here, I just want a -10 here and a -25 here. So if you're running really fast, it'll push that really low. If you're moving really slow, it'll push it low, but not as low. So we're gonna hit compile. We're going to play. And one more thing, I'm gonna bring back up the BP, bring that back over here, and I want to show the capsule in game. There's one thing I don't like about this is that, and I haven't figured out why, but the character lags behind the capsule. And I wanted to show that off. So we hit play. Let's bring our character over here and let's see how well this works. Our character's moving around. But there's our capsule. So obviously if we're making an actual player character in the game, we don't want our character moving outside the capsule like that. But I mean, that's still pretty cool. Like it's a really fast setup to get to there. So if we sprint, we're gonna lag behind. Whoops, we're gonna lag behind even more. And she made it. So cool. So let's play with some of these other settings. We're gonna come over to our AVP. I'm sorry, our control rig. We're gonna play with our speed here. We've got our max speed. We've got, I guess if we want to be like super accurate, let's promote these to variables. Let's actually get them from our blueprint. So instance editable, those, file, save, come back to our blueprint, our APP, bring those up here. Now we want to get our property access again, and we want to say max acceleration, and then we want braking deceleration. We're just going to pipe those values in here. So let's see how that modifies what we're looking at. So keeping up with our blueprint a lot better. So that's good in and of itself. If we move slower, we almost are staying inside. And faster and faster and faster. It gets crazier and crazier. So now we're sprinting. So that's cool. So right now, like this wouldn't be viable as a player character. But I could see instances where you're putting it on, say, an AI character. And so like if we rotate, if we go to sprint mode, I mean strafe mode, and we rotate, like the feet automatically adjust. So you can think about like having what is it? Turn in places for free, so to speak, especially on quadruped characters. And say if you're playing like a quadruped animation and it's attacking and moving at the same time, um, maybe you get some of that foot placement for free instead of trying to do like a split body setup for a quadruped. That might be interesting. Same thing for a biped if you wanted to. But for a biped, like a split body setup is, you know, probably fine. We are using like layered blend per bone. So anyway, I just encourage you, so we'll leave it there, but I encourage you to go around and create some cool stuff with your locomotor and see what it does. This is very cool and very promising, and I like that. And it was a very quick setup. You know, going through that tutorial from Lincoln was fabulous, but that's a 7-hour setup. And it's very bespoke to that one character. So this kind of is not. I mean, you may have to tune your values to be unique, but then you're starting from like a base point. Um, so I feel like with the bespoke setup from the other tutorial, though, like you got much further, much farther, much faster. You got results basically what you wanted to have. This is not a result that I want to have, but there's a lot of promise here. Um, because ultimately the result you're looking for is something that really works with the character. We go back to our normal HP, and we play, and we sprint, right? We want something that's believable in the character and not mechanical. But hey, I see the future, and I'm excited. So best of luck to you out there animating. Hopefully you have uh, enjoying the journey and learning a bunch of stuff along the way, and hopefully we can learn together. All right, peace out.